You probably know chamomile as the little flower that ends up in a bedtime cup of tea. But why did this ordinary-looking flower become one of the world's most famous calming herbs, and what does modern science actually say about it? Stay to the end and you will know where chamomile's reputation came from, what researchers have actually found about anxiety and sleep, how to use the flowers simply, how to grow them, and which people should be more careful with this familiar herb. The chamomile we are focusing on is German chamomile, Matricaria recutita. You may also see the names Matricaria chamomilla or Chamomilla recutita in older references. There is also Roman chamomile, a different plant. The names are similar enough to cause confusion, but the plants are not identical. German chamomile is an annual herb with delicate feathery leaves and flower heads that look like tiny daisies, white petals surrounding a raised yellow center. Look closely at the flower center. What appears to be a simple yellow disc is actually made from many tiny structures packed together. That tiny flower head contains aromatic compounds that give chamomile its familiar scent. One of the best-known compounds is apigenin, which has attracted a great deal of scientific interest. But here is the first important distinction. A plant containing an interesting compound does not automatically mean that drinking its tea produces a strong medical effect. Chamomile was described in ancient medical writings and became important in traditional medicine in several cultures, including ancient Egyptian, Greek, Roman, and Chinese traditions. Its name is often connected with an apple-like fragrance. In older European traditions, chamomile was valued as a gentle-smelling plant that belonged in household gardens and herbal preparations. By the 19th and 20th centuries, chamomile had become a familiar household tea in Europe and beyond. It was often associated with rest, digestion, and quiet evenings. That brings us to the question many viewers will care about most: can chamomile actually help with sleep? The honest answer is not a dramatic yes. Chamomile has traditionally been used for insomnia, but clinical evidence has not conclusively shown that chamomile is effective for insomnia. NSI notes that there is very little research specifically on chamomile for insomnia, and a 2019 review found one study that did not show benefit. So if a cup of chamomile before bed feels like a calming ritual, that experience is real. But the ritual should not be confused with proof that chamomile treats chronic insomnia. And persistent insomnia has many possible causes. If sleep problems continue for weeks or interfere with daily life, the important step is finding the cause rather than relying on a tea alone. Chamomile has also been studied for anxiety. Here the evidence is somewhat more interesting, but still preliminary. A few small studies have suggested chamomile extract may help symptoms of generalized anxiety disorder. NSI describes these findings as preliminary and not conclusive. That distinction matters because a small positive study can be a reason to keep researching, not a reason to announce that a herb has replaced standard treatment. A 2016 randomized trial involving 179 adults with generalized anxiety disorder reported a meaningful reduction in anxiety symptoms after 8 weeks of chamomile extract. But one trial still does not settle the question. Another small trial also suggested modest anxiety effects. But later reviews have found mixed results, including studies that did not show significant effects on situational anxiety. This is why the fairest description is simple: chamomile is promising enough to study, but not proven enough to call a universal anxiety treatment. Outside anxiety and sleep, chamomile has a long traditional history for digestive discomfort, minor mouth and throat problems, and some skin uses. The European Medicines Agency recognizes traditional uses of chamomile flower preparations for minor gastrointestinal complaints, mouth and throat problems, minor skin inflammation, wounds, and symptoms of cough and cold. But the EMA's traditional use category means there is insufficient clinical evidence for firm conclusions, even though long-standing use and plausibility support the traditional application. For everyday life, chamomile is simplest as a food or tea. The flowers can be steeped in hot water to make the familiar golden infusion. Use a clean food-grade chamomile product intended for tea and follow its package directions. There is no need to make an extremely concentrated home brew. Chamomile also works as a gentle culinary ingredient. The flowers can be used to flavor certain drinks, desserts, syrups, and other foods. If you are growing chamomile yourself, harvest the flower heads when they are open and dry them carefully if you want to store them for later use. Now for the garden. Chamomile is easier to grow than many people expect, but the tiny seeds create one important challenge: do not bury them deeply. Give the plant plenty of light and reasonably well-drained soil. Keep the seed bed lightly moist while the seedlings establish. Once established, German chamomile can become a delicate patch of feathery green foliage topped with dozens of small white and yellow flowers. That makes chamomile useful not only for the kitchen but also as a beautiful garden plant that attracts attention from pollinating insects. If you want to collect the flowers, choose a clean growing area away from roadsides, sprayed lawns, industrial pollution, or places you cannot identify. And never assume that every daisy-like flower is chamomile. Correct identification comes first, especially when you intend to eat or drink a plant. There is another reason chamomile deserves caution: allergies. People who react to ragweed, chrysanthemums, marigolds, daisies, or related plants may be more likely to react to chamomile. Allergic reactions can range from mild irritation to rare severe reactions. If you know you have a strong allergy to related plants, do not experiment casually with chamomile. Chamomile can also interact with some medicines. Reported or suspected interactions include warfarin, certain medicines processed by the liver, and possibly sedating medicines. This does not mean everyone taking medicine must avoid chamomile tea. It means the exact product, amount, and individual situation matter. Pregnancy and breastfeeding are another reason to avoid making assumptions. Information about safety for medicinal use is limited, so professional advice is the sensible choice. A normal cup of chamomile tea and a concentrated chamomile extract are not the same exposure. The more concentrated the preparation becomes, the more important it is to understand exactly what you are taking. And chamomile essential oil is a separate product again. Concentrated oils should never be treated as though they were simply a stronger version of tea. If a chamomile product causes swelling, breathing difficulty, widespread rash, or another serious unexpected reaction, stop using it and seek medical help. So what should you actually remember? Chamomile has a real history, a pleasant everyday use, and some intriguing research, but its strongest health claims still need better evidence. For sleep, the evidence is inconclusive. For anxiety, a few studies are encouraging but preliminary. For traditional digestive, mouth, throat, and skin uses, the evidence category is mainly long-standing traditional use. That may sound less exciting than a miracle claim, but it is actually more useful. It tells you where curiosity belongs and where caution belongs. And perhaps the real charm of chamomile is that it does not need to cure everything. A small flower can be a garden plant, a traditional herb, a cup of tea, and a subject of serious scientific questions all at once. The next time you see those tiny white petals around a golden center, you may look twice. There is a much longer story hiding in that ordinary little flower. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Plant Lore After 60. We will keep looking at familiar plants and separating traditional wisdom from claims that deserve a close